Welcome to the News Hour. If the U.S. wants to use the death of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar as an opportunity for peace, the warring sides today are publicly resisting.
Hamas vowed to keep fighting. Lebanese Hezbollah announced a new phase of its war, and Israel announced more military deployments into northern Gaza and the Israeli border with Lebanon. Nick Schifrin starts our coverage.
Today in Han Yunis, in a blown-out mosque, Palestinians from Yahya Sinwar's hometown mourn the death of a man they called a martyr. His final act, throwing a stick at an Israeli drone, before an Israeli tank, seen in new footage released today, fired and killed him. But one day after it announced his death, the Israeli military also announced it expanded operational activity in northern Gaza. Much of Hamas's leadership is dead, but Hamas fighters continue their attacks. And today, the group promised to keep it up and not give up its 100 Israeli hostages without a permanent ceasefire, said Deputy Hamas Chief Khalil al-Haya.
Those prisoners will not return to you until the aggression on our people in Gaza is stopped and full withdrawal from it, as well as the release of our heroes, the prisoners, from the occupation jails. And we will continue with Hamas's path.
And Israel vowed to continue what it called its limited operation in southern Lebanon, calling up another reserve brigade, said Israel's top general Herzi Halevi.
We are very determined to strike Hezbollah as hard as possible, and we are making sure that every day there's a very tough surprise for Hezbollah.
But the war has been difficult and deadly for Israeli soldiers buried today, and for Lebanese, including 13 killed in an Israeli airstrike on a municipal building whose funeral today was collective. Hezbollah is still launching rockets at Israel and today vowed a, quote, new phase of the war. Despite all the calls for more fighting, U.S. officials still hope Sinwar's death can produce momentum for a Gaza ceasefire. And Secretary of State Antony Blinken will soon make his 12th trip to see Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
I told the Prime Minister of Israel yesterday, let's also make this moment an opportunity to seek a path to peace, a better future in Gaza without Hamas.
But President Biden also admitted today it would be harder to get a ceasefire in Gaza than it would be in Lebanon. What U.S. officials tell me is a reflection of their skepticism that Israel's maximalist goals in Gaza will change, or, Jeff, that Hamas will be willing to make compromise.
And Nick, given Hamas's latest position on the negotiations, what does that suggest about what might come next and who this militant group might choose as their next leader?
We spoke to a lot of experts and officials today, and all of them emphasize it's a little too early to know exactly where Hamas will proceed. But in the piece that we just showed, you heard that statement from the deputy leader of Hamas, Khalil al-Haya. He is believed to represent the organization, not just himself. That suggests the fighting will continue, also that they're willing to negotiate, even if the opening public offer has been unacceptable to Israel. He is one of the possible successors to Sinwar. Other candidates include Khalil Mashal. Either one of them would likely lead the organization's political wing from Doha. But the military wing will likely be led by this man, Mohammed Sinwar, Yahya Sinwar's brother. He is considered just as, if not more, ruthless than his brother. Hamas has replaced leaders in the past, but given what's happened in Gaza over the last year, any political leader based in Doha is going to have a hard time controlling the fighters in Gaza. Take a listen to Nathan Brown from George Washington University.
Hamas has well-oiled procedures. They've got ways to canvass people in jail, ways to canvass people who are underground in the West Bank, abroad, Gaza, and so on. But their mechanisms have never had to operate under a situation like this. I've got to believe the Hamas that comes out of this will be very, very different, probably leaner and perhaps a little bit meaner as people within the organization look to each other and say, what did you do in the war?
That distance between the political and military wings, and also some expectation that the first step any new leader would make would be to make concessions, that, Jeff, is going to make it very difficult to get any kind of ceasefire talks going from the Hamas side.
Meantime, U.S. officials say they want Israel to use this as an opportunity to end the war. What is Israel saying about that?
There's a debate in Israel on what to do, and some in the military have been saying even before Sinwar's death that it is time to declare victory in Gaza and downshift operation, move to some kind of counterterrorism operation and allowing more humanitarian aid into Gaza. But The first order for the military and the political leadership in Gaza remains the hostages. Yesterday, Netanyahu made a specific offer. He said Israel will guarantee the safety of all those who return our hostages. What he did not offer, however, and what he has been consistent about since day one, is that maximalist goal, letting Hamas have any power in Gaza in the future. And that goal is not going to change, says Yonahan Plessner, president of the Israel Democracy Institute.
The goal of not allowing Hamas to continue to control Gaza is a goal that is still valid. Israel is not putting that offer on the table because we know if Hamas remains there, their alliance with Iran will allow them to again rebuild their capacity and redirect terror capabilities. So this is not an option. Someone else needs to replace Hamas as the entity that manages Gaza.
The challenge, of course, is what is the next entity to manage Gaza? U.S. officials have been working with Arab governments to try and create a security force that would transition to the Palestinian Authority, but there is no agreement between those Arab governments, and Netanyahu opposes any Palestinian Authority control over Gaza. That is what Blinken is going to be working on next week when he goes to the region. But again, U.S. officials are skeptical that you get either side's movement.
And what about the Palestinians? I mean, how are they viewing the prospects of ending this war?
Very skeptically. They do not see Netanyahu budging from his goals, nor do they see the U.S. using very much leverage over Netanyahu to try and get him to budge. Take a listen to Khalid El-Gundi of the Middle East Institute.
It is an opportunity, but it's one that I'm not sure Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to seize upon. I mean, in his statement yesterday, he sort of nodded in both directions. On the one hand, saying there's an opportunity here. On the other hand, saying the war will continue. I think most people understand his personal and political calculations are that he needs the war to continue, to remain in power, to keep his coalition intact, to avoid accountability for the failures of October 7th of last year. And he's had very little incentive to end the war.
Palestinians in Gaza and U.S. officials also point out there's very little aid getting into northern Gaza. Jeff, over the last few days, the Israeli military does say that dozens of trucks got in. The U.S. says that's not enough.
Nick Schifrin, our thanks to you as always. We appreciate it.
Thank you.